Are you stuck in a relationship that began with almost perfect sweetness, yet slowly drained you, left you disoriented, and offered you no stable affection in return? If so, you are not alone, and the emotions you're carrying are entirely valid. Because in a relationship with a narcissistic woman, you don't just love. You explain, you endure, you shrink yourself, and you hold on to the rare moments of warmth she gives, and then suddenly takes away as if they never existed. Others may see nothing unusual, but inside, you're exhausted, doubtful, and feeling smaller every day. What keeps you there isn't weakness. It's the belief you had in the beautiful version of herself she showed you at the beginning, the version that made you feel chosen, special. But the longer you stay, the more you realize you're disappearing in her reactions. Her silence makes you blame yourself. Her criticism makes you question your worth. And so, you find yourself torn, wanting to leave to regain your peace, yet terrified of losing the woman your heart once believed was the one. Because of the emotional turmoil you're experiencing, I created this video as a way to walk alongside you as a safe space to name the invisible wounds you've carried, to expose how a narcissistic woman truly operates, and most importantly, to remind you that healing is not a luxury. It is your right, a psychological necessity you fully deserve. If you stay until the end of this video, you will understand why so many people struggle to believe the truth about a narcissistic woman, and more importantly, you will learn how to reclaim the emotional strength she quietly drained from you, step by step, in a steady and grounded way. And from those very emotions, we are led to a difficult reality few people dare acknowledge. The truth about a narcissistic woman is almost always dismissed, not because you are exaggerating or misunderstanding, but because society itself has long been conditioned to protect her without even realizing it. For generations, narcissism has been framed as a masculine trait: control, manipulation, emotional coldness, dominance, all instinctively labeled as male behavior. So when a woman displays these same patterns, most people simply do not know how to interpret them. Lacking a framework, they reach for the easiest explanations. Maybe she's just sensitive. Maybe she's stressed. Women can be emotional. These excuses seem harmless, but they blur the truth, allowing her toxic behavior to stay hidden under a veil of sympathy. And that is why you become the one questioned. People ask you, "Are you sure? She seems nice. Maybe you're overthinking?" This disbelief doesn't just invalidate your pain, it forces you to question your own perception. You suffer not only from her manipulation, but also from the world's inability to see what you see. But here's the truth. Their disbelief says nothing about the accuracy of your experience, only about the limits of their awareness. Those who have never seen her darker side only see what she wants them to see: carefully crafted softness, selective vulnerability, rehearsed kindness. They see the mask, you see the reality. They see the performance, you see the pattern. And this gap in experience is exactly why your truth feels unbelievable to others, yet undeniably real to you. And when we look deeper, another reason becomes clear. The truth about her is hard to believe because the mask a narcissistic woman wears is crafted so perfectly that no one suspects it isn't real. A narcissistic woman rarely shows the world her true self. Instead, she presents the most polished version possible: warm, kind, understanding, and even self-sacrificing. She knows exactly when to smile, when to appear vulnerable, and when to act as though she needs protection. Every gesture and every word strengthens the illusion that she is too good to ever harm anyone. Because of this presentation, those who only see her in public, friends, co-workers, neighbors, easily believe she is gentle, sweet, or even unfairly treated by life. To them, she appears as the perfect victim. But your reality is completely different. A narcissistic woman performs for the world, but never for the man she is involved with. When the door closes and only the two of you remain, the mask falls. Subtle criticism, silent punishment, unreasonable demands, emotional invalidation, control. These are things she reveals only in private. So, when you finally speak up, it sounds as if you are describing two different women. They see an angel, You live with the storm. This gap in perception isolates you even more. You suffer alone inside an experience no one else believes, because they only trust the flawless image she carefully constructs. And it is precisely the perfection of this mask that makes the truth about a narcissistic woman one of the hardest truths for people to accept, even when you are the only one who has seen everything clearly. Another crucial reason your truth is often doubted lies in the experience gap. People who have never been close to a narcissist, who have never heard a lie wrapped in sweetness, never felt manipulation hiding behind care, simply have no reference point to understand what you're describing. To them, your story can sound too complex, hard to believe, or even a bit exaggerated. They cannot imagine the emotional cycles you lived through: hope, disappointment, numbness, justification, back to hope. A loop that drains you, yet remains invisible to them. And without first-hand experience, they default to assumptions like, maybe you misunderstood, you're being too sensitive, she doesn't seem like that at all. These reactions don't just invalidate your truth, they push you into a profound loneliness. You carry a heavy reality, yet the world around you responds with doubt. Over time, this can even make you question yourself. Am I overreacting? Was it really that bad? This is one of the most painful invisible wounds of narcissistic abuse. You suffer not only from the abuser's behavior, but also from the disbelief of the people you once trusted. Understanding that their skepticism comes from lack of experience, not from lack of honesty on your part, is the first step in breaking out of that isolation and standing firm in your own narrative. When the skepticism of others surrounds you, the pain doesn't just double, it deepens in a way that words can barely capture. You are not only facing the manipulation and emotional harm from the narcissistic woman, but also the doubtful looks and hesitant reactions from the people around you. That disbelief slowly forces you to question your own perception. Am I too sensitive? Maybe I misunderstood. Could I be the one at fault? This is one of the cruelest impacts of narcissistic abuse. You are hurt once by her actions, and then hurt again by the world's inability to believe you. Your intuition becomes blurred, your voice feels weightless, and when no one confirms your experience, you are left carrying the entire truth on your own, painfully, silently, and with growing confusion. But this loneliness does not reflect weakness. It reflects how sophisticated the manipulation you endured truly was, hidden so well that no one else could see it. Once you understand that others doubt you not because your story lacks truth, but because they lack the experience to recognize it, something inside you begins to shift. You stop blaming yourself. You stop questioning your worth. You begin to trust your own perception again. And from this clarity, you can finally take the next essential step: learning how to protect your heart, your mind, and your boundaries. This is where we move into the 6 core principles that will help you safeguard yourself from a narcissistic woman. And once you recognize that other people's doubt says nothing about the truth of your experience, we arrive at the first and most essential principle of self-protection. Principle 1. Release the need to convince everyone. The instinct of anyone who has survived narcissistic abuse is to seek validation, to want others to see, understand, and acknowledge what you lived through. You hope someone will say, "I believe you," but the more you try to prove yourself, the more emotionally drained you become. The difficult truth is this: some people are simply not ready or not brave enough to see the narcissistic woman for who she truly is. This has nothing to do with your honesty or worth. It has everything to do with their limited awareness. Letting go of the need to persuade is not surrender. It is an act of self-protection. Every time you argue, explain, or justify, you spend emotional energy you actually need for healing. You do not owe anyone a detailed presentation of your pain, especially those who have no intention of listening. Silence, at times, carries more power than explanation, because as her mask eventually cracks on its own, your steady calmness will reveal the truth far more effectively than any confrontation ever could. And once you release the need to convince, The next step is learning how to speak about your experience in a way that is clear, grounded, and safe for your emotional well-being. And once you release the need to convince others, the next step in protecting yourself is this. Principle 2. Describe behavior, not labels. Because the moment you call someone a narcissist, the entire conversation shifts. People become defensive, minimize your experience, or assume you're exaggerating. Narcissist is a heavy label, and often it shuts people down instead of opening their minds. But when you describe behavior, what actually happened, you make the truth tangible, specific, and harder to dismiss. Talk about the promises made in tenderness and broken with indifference. Talk about the moments of kindness that abruptly turned into cruelty. Describe how every conversation somehow circled back to her needs, regardless of how you felt. When you paint a picture instead of naming a concept, listeners gain reference points. They cannot say you're too sensitive when what you show them is a pattern, repeated and observable. This approach also protects your mental clarity. By focusing on concrete events rather than labels, you step out of the confusion that gaslighting creates. You regain the ability to trust your own memory. You reaffirm your perception of what you lived through. You are not responsible for diagnosing anyone. Your only task is to speak the truth of your experience, and that truth is powerful enough on its own. Moreover, once you've learned to describe behavior instead of labeling someone, the next essential step is this. Principle 3. Prioritize safety and mental health. Living in the orbit of a narcissistic woman often means living in a state of prolonged hypervigilance. You monitor her moods, adjust every word, and shrink your own emotions to avoid conflict. Over time, those small adjustments erode you. You feel tired but are never allowed to be tired. You feel anxious but are told you're overreacting. You feel hurt but are convinced that you're just too sensitive. This quiet, chronic stress weakens both your mind and your body. Your sleep becomes disrupted, your nervous system stays on high alert, and your sense of self-worth slowly diminishes. This is not difficult love. This is a toxic environment. That is why prioritizing your safety, both emotional and physical, must be your first step toward breaking free from the cycle. This can begin with simple actions: limiting contact, creating emotional distance, seeking therapy, or joining support groups where your experience is understood instead of dismissed. Most importantly, let go of the guilt. A narcissistic woman will always try to convince you that distancing yourself is selfish. But the truth is, self-protection is not selfish, it is survival. You deserve a space where you can breathe, recover, and reconnect with the most authentic version of yourself. And at some point, once you've learned to prioritize your emotional safety, the next essential step is this. Principle 4. Set clear and firm boundaries. A narcissistic woman tends to seep into every corner of your life, your time, your emotions, your thoughts, even your relationships with others. She doesn't simply enter your life, she occupies space, takes control, and expands her influence until you can no longer distinguish where you end and where she begins. That is why boundaries aren't optional, they are survival tools. Boundaries are not expressions of anger or defiance, they are expressions of self-respect. A real boundary must be clear, consistent, simple, and free of over-explaining. If you say no but behave like you mean yes, the boundary collapses. If you argue about why you need the boundary, you give her an opening to manipulate you through guilt, justification, or emotional pressure. Holding a boundary is not merely telling her what you will or will not accept. It is a commitment to yourself that your peace, your feelings, and your safety deserve protection. A boundary can be as simple as avoiding topics that cause emotional harm, reducing communication, creating emotional distance during her unstable phase, maintaining your privacy without guilt. Each time you uphold a boundary, you don't just block a harmful pattern, you strengthen your dignity, your clarity, and your trust in yourself. And at this point, once you've learned to set firm boundaries, the next essential step is this. Principle 5. Protect your inner emotional world. A narcissistic woman feeds on your emotional reactions. The more hurt you feel, the stronger she becomes. The more anger you show, the more control she gains. The more you plead, explain, or justify, the more powerful she feels. That is why protecting your emotions is not optional, it is essential for survival. This does not mean becoming emotionless or cold. It means learning to choose the right place to express your feelings. In front of her, calmness, even silence, becomes your strongest shield. When she creates drama, seeks reaction, or tries to provoke chaos, your neutrality deprives her of the emotional fuel she craves. But this does not mean you should swallow your emotions. Your feelings must be released just in safe places, with trusted friends, with a therapist, in a journal where honesty is free from judgment. Withholding your emotions in front of a narcissist is not suppression, it is protection. You are safeguarding the most vulnerable, beautiful, and authentic parts of yourself for those who honor them, not for someone who uses them as leverage. And when you learn to protect your inner emotional world, you will notice something shift. True stability begins from within. And once you've learned to protect your inner emotional world, the final step, the one that completes the entire journey, is this. Principle 7. Avoid confrontation, watch behavior, and rebuild yourself. Confronting a narcissistic woman rarely brings justice. You cannot win an argument with someone whose goal is not truth but dominance. Confrontation leads only to blame shifting, denial, role reversal, and emotional attacks that leave you more exhausted than before. So choosing not to confront is not weakness. It is choosing peace, clarity, and self-control. Instead of arguing, observe. Behavior is the truth, not words. Apologies, promises to change, or moments of sudden tenderness mean nothing if they are not backed by consistent action. When you shift your focus from words to behavior, you step out of illusion and anchor yourself in reality. That clarity is what allows you to make the right decisions, to step back, to distance yourself, or to walk away entirely. But leaving a toxic relationship is not an ending, it is the beginning of your rebuilding phase. You start caring for yourself again. You reclaim the joy that was drained from you. You reconnect with people who truly see you. You slowly regain your breath, your sleep, your clarity, and your sense of worth. Healing is not quick, and it is not linear, but every step you take moves you farther away from her shadow and closer to the strong, wise, and free version of yourself that has been waiting beneath the hurt. And once you have learned to step away from pointless confrontations, to watch actions instead of believing promises, and to start rebuilding yourself, that is the pivotal transition that leads you into the final stage. Looking back on this entire journey with clearer thinking and a more regulated nervous system, living in the reality of a narcissistic woman, especially when others cannot see the damage you endured, creates a very specific kind of loneliness, the kind that makes people question their own judgment. But that loneliness does not invalidate your truth. You know what you lived through. You know the emotions you had to suppress. The opinions of outsiders cannot reduce the accuracy of the psychological reality you experienced. What matters more is this. Your journey is not defined by someone else's blindness, but by the principles you choose to stand on. Boundaries, self-protection, mental health care, and the ability to recognize manipulation, these are the elements that reshape your emotional life. They are what pull you out of the fog of doubt and bring you back to the center of yourself. What you must remember is that you are not alone. Many others have gone through similar relational patterns, being manipulated, dismissed, and gaslighted, and they eventually found peace on the other side. This means the pain you feel now is not a final destination, but a necessary phase in the process of psychological recovery. Your story has value, even when others are not emotionally mature enough to receive it. Your truth remains valid, even when no one stands beside you. So keep that truth close to your heart, keep moving forward day by day, and trust that emotional freedom is entirely attainable when you commit to the right path. You are stronger than you think, and you deserve to enter the next chapter of your life with the stability, clarity, and self-respect you worked so hard to reclaim.